So it's really good to be here with you all today for many reasons. And I've been thinking a lot lately about Lazarus, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the story, at least a little bit, even if you've never read it. But just in case, I want to summarize it a little bit for you, and I'll read part of the story. And it says, when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. Lazarus and Mary and her sister Martha were all friends of Jesus, and they lived in Bethany. And Jesus was around, traveling around, and word came to him that his friend Lazarus had died. And he sort of delayed a little while to go to see Mary and Martha and to mourn with them. But finally, he decided to go. And uh, this is what happened. And Mary says, my brother wouldn't have died had you been here. Why didn't you come sooner? When Jesus saw her weeping, and the people who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And then we have the shortest verse in the Bible, only two words. Jesus wept. Then the people said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind have kept this man from dying? Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there's a bad odor. He's been there for 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. For some reason, and a little commentary here, for some reason, I get the feeling that Jesus was standing there saying, this had better work, Lord, because man, I'm going to look really foolish if it doesn't. So he had to put on a little bit of a show there. When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. And Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. And the story goes on to tell how the religious leaders got worried about all this attention that Jesus was getting for himself. And now they had to worry about Lazarus too, because he was getting a lot of attention and people were coming to see this man who had been raised from the dead. And there are a lot of legends and stories and poems about Lazarus' life after he was raised from the dead. And I've read quite a few of them over the past few weeks. Honestly, I can't say that the vast majority of them, can say rather that the vast majority of them are kind of dark and depressing in a way that they describe his life after the event. He's portrayed as a somber, even an angry man, unsmiling and distant and confused. And people have mixed reactions to him. At first, they're amazed and they want to see him. They even bring sick and dying people to him to be healed. But many of them are also frightened. The people who live near him are frightened of him, and the children are frightened of him. And they even want him to go away again. Some of them even want him just to go be dead again. I mean, think about that when this was supposed to have happened, right? In an age when people believed in demons and angels appearing and all sorts of miraculous things, this miracle was a real doozy, right? Uh, it really got their attention. A man dead for 4 days suddenly comes back to life. Almost makes me think that maybe when Jesus was raised after 3 days, Lazarus was saying, "You're a piker. I was dead for 4 days." You know. So, as I said, you can imagine I've been thinking about a lot about Lazarus lately. Some of you may or may not have heard uh, what Lisa and I and my son and daughter and pretty much grandson too what I put them through for the past few months in June and July, having had 3 heart attacks, and one of them uh, um, resulting in needing the defibrillator to bring me back. Hence the Lazarus thinking about stuff, you know. But mine isn't as dramatic as his. After all, I wasn't dead for 4 days. I was gone for of about all of 5 or 6 minutes, maybe a little longer. But still, it's a sobering thing to think about. One minute I was in the ambulance talking to the EMTs, and the next thing I remember, I was screaming when that defibrillator shocked me. If you've ever seen that, you know, sometimes they show you where on TV, especially those hospital shows, they show you and the body just leaps up a little bit and they wake up and everything's fine. That's not how it feels. It really, really hurts when they do that. And next thing I was going into the emergency room, and that was after they tried CPR 3 times. Other than that, though, I don't remember anything. After I was, like I said, I was speaking to the EMTs, and next thing I'm going into the emergency room. I saw no bright lights. I didn't have any visions. I didn't see anybody that has passed away before. I didn't see my family or anything. No images. And really, you know me and how I always think something related to J.R.R. Tolkien and Frodo Baggins, Bilbo Baggins, right? The book that he wrote after his adventures. He wrote a book called There and Back Again. And that's what I thought about titling this sermon, but I decided not to because there was no there for me. But now, for me at least, that great mystery not only remains, but it's more complicated. Is there something beyond this life? Does consciousness survive after we die? And if so, in what form? And now, after having experienced death, at least briefly, and having experienced nothing during that time, I have my own thoughts on the afterlife. Have they changed? Are they the same? I'm wrestling with those questions a bit. These are all questions I've thought about since I was a child, and questions that we all think about at times, right? Try as we might, we can't escape these kinds of questions because death is an ever present reality, a companion that walks beside us from the day we're born. Down through the ages, people have had different ideas about death and dying, and most of them, when you think about it, are fear-based ideas. And for the most part, those are the images most people still hold about death. Our culture is obsessed with the fear of death, and so we do all we can to assuage that fear or make it as irrelevant to our own lives as possible. Down through the ages, we've created rituals and holy days, holidays that mitigate the reality of that death. The celebration of Samhain, which is coming up at the end of October, for example. We call it Halloween now, of course, here anyway in the United States, or those of us who don't celebrate it in its original fashion. According to Irish mythology, Samhain was a time when the doorways to the other world opened, when the veil was thinnest, allowing supernatural beings and the souls of the dead to come into our world. Our Mexican sisters and brothers celebrate Dia de los Muertos. And around the world, every culture has rituals to help people deal with the reality of death and every person's ultimate demise. Remember what that, I forget her name, the representative or the senator who was having the town hall with the representative, and a couple of months ago, trying to justify the big stupid bill, where she said to somebody in the audience who said people are going to die, and what was her response? Well, we're all going to die. Now, as crazy as the response to that was, she's right. We're all going to die. Doesn't justify that response, though. When you think about it, even the idea of Easter is a way to mitigate that fear of death, because what do we do? Even at funerals and all, we say, just as the Lord was risen, we will also be risen in the end times at the last day, and taken up to heaven, or sent to hell if you believe in hell. And of course, there is that notion of the afterlife in heaven, where we hope to see all of our loved ones and the ones that people we've known in the past, or maybe we don't hope to do that. It's a belief that keeps people hopeful that these loved ones are in a better place. We say they're in a better place and that they're there waiting for us. Now, I've not been one to believe in heaven or hell for many years. And some people take that to mean that I don't believe in God. But for me, they're two separate questions. Once you get into the question of whether there's a God or not, a whole other can of theological worms is opened up. But if there is an afterlife, it doesn't necessarily imply the existence of a God. I believe that you can have an afterlife without a God, and it's possible that neither exists, and that when we're done, we're just done. Personally, I tend toward the idea that consciousness exists as an energy, and the energy that is me will continue in some form or other on a plane of his existence or a different plane of existence, or as part of a force that runs through and all things in the multiverse. Emerson called it the oversoul. We call it maybe the great mystery, the Tao. I think the best word for it is love. But frankly, I've come to believe that all of those questions, all that speculation really means very little. It's really just a lot of mental and theological masturbation when you think about it. And it not only distracts us from the truth of the reality of John Donne's poem, the one that says, "Send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." It distracts us from the questions we try to avoid while we have life right in front of us, while we're still alive. I've heard many of the cliches, of course, from well meaning friends who know about my experience a couple of months ago. Things like, well, Paul, every day is a gift now, right? Or it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Now, people who haven't had this experience can say those things. How they do that is sometimes puzzling to me. My initial thought is to respond by saying, oh, does it? Did I not have perspective before or consider every day a gift before? Because it seems a bit audacious for someone who's never had the experience to say those kinds of things. But again, you know what? They're right. And cliche though those may be, those statements are right. Every day is a gift. And the reality of death does put everything in perspective. You don't have to die and come back to life. You don't have to go there and back again to understand that right now is the time to be alive, really experiencing the life that you've been given. The Buddha taught that life is a great gift. Think about it. You were born now in this time period. An interesting time, very interesting right now, this time period. Think about it. You were born when the Beatles were around. That's great. I have I used to have that bumper sticker on my car, and I loved it when young people saw it because it said, I may be old, but I got to see all the good bands. Now, that may just be a fluke that you were born right now, or maybe there's some grand plan in the universe. But in either case, whatever you think, you have the choice of either living life fully or just hanging around until death looks at his wristwatch and says, okay, I've wasted enough time waiting for you to do something. Let's go. Now, admittedly, that's a silly way of looking at death. Death and the fact that it can happen at any moment is a fact, not a cliche. But that reality should bring home the reality that life is a great gift, and we should be doing all we can, not only to live our lives to the fullest, but to help others do the same. And I just noticed in my notes here that instead of typing the word others, it says otters. We should help otters do the same too. Otters need help as well. How many of you have seen this, The Shawshank Redemption, the movie? You raise your hand. Okay. Remember that movie? A great movie. Um, and there's that one scene where Andy Dufresne says to his friend Red, it's time to get busy living or get busy dying. The questions I have now are more like, what changes do I make? What's my purpose now? How can I best serve other people? How can I best use the time that I have? Because honestly, just like we all think beforehand, I don't know how many more years I've got or how many days I've got. I don't know. And for me, that's a real reality every day. When I wake up in the morning these days, I say, glad I'm alive, made it through another night. There's a song in that Broadway musical Pippin called Just No Time at All. And the chorus says, it's time to start living, time to take a little from the world we're given, time to take time for spring will turn to fall in just no time at all. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day on the phone who I went to the first year of college in 1973 down in Kentucky. And Neil lives in Tennessee, my best friend. And he's having his own health problems. We were both talking, how did we get here? I'm going to be 70 years old in December. He's already turned 70 just a few days ago. And I'm saying, how did we get here? It seems like a few days ago, we were hanging out at Praise the Lord Pizza in Wilmore, Kentucky. Yes, it was called Praise the Lord Pizza. They served Chef Boyardee pizza, worst pizza ever made. Anyway, it just happened. It just happened. Weird. I'm sure all of you have felt that as well. Things just come along and you think this is when the woulda, coulda, shouldas start for us. But we need to forget the woulda, coulda, shouldas and just do I'm going to's. Now I'm going to do this. So in closing, I just want to read you something from the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, a Unitarian Universalist minister. And it's titled, Let Me Die Laughing. We are all dying, he says, our lives always moving toward completion. We need to learn to live with death and to understand that death is not the worst of all events. We need to fear not death, but life, empty lives, loveless lives, lives that do not build upon the gifts that each of us has been given, lives that are like living deaths, lives which we never take the time to savor and appreciate, lives in which we never pause to breathe deeply. What we need to fear is not death, but squandering the lives we've been miraculously given. So let me die laughing, savoring one of life's crazy moments. Let me die holding the hand of one I love and recalling that I tried to love and was loved in return. Let me die remembering that life has been good and that I did what I could. But today, just remind me that I am dying so that I can live, savor, and love with all my heart. May it be so.
If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.